What's up, baseball world? Welcome along to another edition of Jay's Talk with Jay. It's a special sweep edition. I am joined by the lovely Sheldon and Rob from Blue Jay Centre. Boys, how you doing?
Not too bad. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm feeling the sweep, and we're rolling right now, Jay. I'm excited.
Wait. Sweep. Look, boys, I have to say, I've been hugely impressed. I think that taking the Braves on 6 games, 6 wins, we couldn't have asked for anything more. What's your take?
Just they figured it out once again today. I didn't think that today was going to be a win. I thought that anytime Stripling starts, you hold your breath a little bit. And I don't think that's completely unjustified, especially the fact that we saw them earlier 2 weeks ago. I thought that second time around, giving the Braves an extra look at him wouldn't go so great. And despite that first inning looking like it was trending that way, he figured it out. He gave his best start as a J probably since getting traded over here. And the bats showed up. They got some big hits again. Once again, late in the game, they won the bullpen battle as they have all year. And that's what ended up sweeping the Braves.
Yeah, I'm totally impressed. I actually picked the Jays to lose today. I wasn't confident in Stripling.
We saw
3 innings. He performed incredibly well, man. I 5 innings, 2 earned runs. What more can you ask for? 9 Ks. He kept them in check, and then the bullpen came in. And as Rob said, we won the bullpen battle. And great win, great sweep.
Yeah, I was impressed with Stripling. Like the first inning, didn't look good. It didn't look like it was going to go our way. But just before we started recording, I was speaking to Rob, and I said there's something about this team that 4th, 5th inning they kind of start kicking into gear, and it just kind of seems to click. And then once the bullpen comes in, it just lights out at the moment. You can't argue with our bullpen at the minute.
Yeah, and like I said this on the post-game show as well, it's not even that our main guys are getting it done, because you look at the bullpen, you think losing Anthony Castro, losing Merriweather early on in the year, losing some of the other guys, Dolis, Phelps, you think that this is on paper a pretty depleted bullpen, but even the guys who were depth pieces, the Joel Pyams of the world, the Travis Bergen, even they came in here and pitched some big zeros late in the game. Tim Maisley is another guy that we name dropped who didn't have his game today, but has been outstanding all year. So it's not so much the main guys, it's even the guys they're throwing out there in terms of depth that are getting it done as well.
Yeah, the Jays' depth in the bullpen is just astounding, man. I mean, we've seen 2 teams today. We've seen the Braves struggle with their bullpen. It looks like it's been an ongoing issue with those guys. And you have our bullpen where you substitute one pitcher for another, and it doesn't miss a beat. Like, they're just incredibly consistent, they're very, very good. So the bullpen's been keeping us in a lot of games. The bullpen's actually helping us win a lot of games. So as I mentioned before, whatever Charlie's doing in that bullpen, I know we criticize him from time to time for using his bullpen so much, but it's working out, man. All of them are doing well.
This has kind of been the trend too throughout the entire Mark Shapiro, Ross Atkins tenure when you think about it. And everyone likes to point to the Grilly Benoit, but even the years from that moment up until now, you got the Joe Smiths, Dominic Leone, Tyler Clippard that 1 year, John Axford. They've been able to figure out guys who are considered scraps, sign on the waiver wire, sign on cheap vet minimum deals, minor league deals, and they've been able to build pretty good bullpens despite, when looking at the overall roster, not necessarily a whole lot of popping names. So you got to give them credit. They've been doing this their whole tenure here.
Yeah, I've kind of backed the front office. A lot of people still aren't very keen on them. But you can't argue with what they've done so far. And I think the fact that they brought in someone like Springer this year, they've kind of shown their intentions, really. Obviously, we're still waiting to see him play on a regular basis. But without him, we've been good. We've been good. We're 4 games over 500 now. That's not something that we're used to this early on in the season, not really. And they've gone out, that they've put these little pieces in the bullpen, and you have to ask as well. Like they could have not panicked, but they could have started looking at the market already but everyone that seems to have come in, apart from the starting rotation, I think we all still realise that we've got 3, possibly 4, but they could have gone and panicked. They haven't, and at the moment, touch wood, it seems to be working.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the rotation itself, a big reason why they've kind of gotten away with it is because the dominance of Robbie Ray. You just don't even want to imagine where this team would be right now if Robbie Ray was pitching like the pitcher that he was when they acquired him in Arizona last year. He's, like I said in the earlier post-game stream this week, he's been closer to a star than a serviceable pitcher. And right now, you look at the Jays rotation with Ryu and Ray, you feel pretty confident as your 1 and 2. I think if Ray's able to throw strikes, and he has been, only 1 walk in his last 4 starts, there's no reason why he can't be a number 2 in a rotation with that awesome stuff that he has. He throws a lot of hot fire from the left side, so you love that as well. And then Steven Matt's kind of been a stabilizing force. You look right now, you got 3 lefties, and hopefully, fingers crossed, that 2 righties are coming up soon by the names of Pearson and Manoah. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of those 2, but they're coming. They're coming soon.
I think if you take Steven Max's first 4 starts, which were unbelievably great, and where would the Jays be? They'd probably be a couple games under 500. And you take a look at Robbie Ray and what he's been doing. I think he's surpassed everyone's expectations up to this point as being this, I would say he's an all-star caliber pitcher at this point in time, the way he's been performing. And as Rob had said, hopefully we get 2 righties. I don't know if it's going to be Pearson and Manoah. I prefer to keep them down there and let them work out things. Cross our fingers. One of them probably Pearson, but I think the other righty might be between Thornton and Hatch. Right? And if Strickland shows that he can, if this is something normal for him, what he did today, then you may have to include Strickland into that mix. Maybe he's figured it out. So they got possibilities now, which is good. It's always good to have more possibilities than trying to struggle to find a possibility.
What's your take on the Pearson situation? Obviously, we've kind of discussed him coming up, but then sending him straight back down. I've seen you guys talk about it on Blue Jay Center. I don't know what to make of it. There's some rumors flying around about his attitude and stuff like that. I don't get that impression, but something's not quite right there.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure all the behind the scenes stuff. Unfortunately, none of us are with the team. We're obviously fans covering them from a distance. But I personally, I don't like it. I don't like the idea that you bring him up being one of your prized possessions, one of your prized assets in terms of pitching. And despite a rough start, and look, I'm not defending that start. He wasn't good against the Astros, but you bring in a guy who had 1 AAA rehab start against a team that kills right-handed pitching like they have for the last few years or so, whether they're cheating or not. They're a good team. They're very talented. And he struggled, as anyone would. That's such sort of a turnaround. And I think you got to keep throwing him out there because we talk about the reinforcement, the possibly having Thomas Hatch come up later on in the year. Maybe Manoah gets called up. But right now, you're rolling with 3 guys. And one of them is, 3 guys plus Ross Stripling, who at the time of Pearson's start was coming in with an ERA over 6. So my line of thinking was, if you already brought him up, you made I guess now in hindsight, the mistake of bringing him up after just 1 start, you might as well keep him in the big leagues and let him figure it out, because out of all the guys that you have available to you, he's got more upside than Ross Stripling or even Anthony Kane, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it. I mean, it sounded, and it felt like it was desperation that they needed someone to come up and get some innings in that start. I can understand that point from their perspective, but I still don't. I don't agree with it. I think I would just left him in AAA. Let him get about 5 starts. Let him get the whole month of May. Get about 5 or 6 starts. Let him work through some ups and downs. Because he's going to run into them. And we saw what happened in Houston. He ran into it, and he didn't know how to pick himself out of it. And that's probably part of development. He needs that development. So I would have kept him in the minors. Would have kept him in play for the entire month of May, and then bring him up in June. Right now, we spoke about it earlier. Trent Thornton might be a guy that put him in the rotation, let him go 4 or 5 innings, hopefully, and see what happens there before bringing up Pearson. But right now, I'm not sure about the attitude issues. I did catch a special on him, and one of the things that caught my attention was he's determined to throw 110. And I'm kind of like, you already throw 101, 102. I don't think 110 is going to help you all that much, especially if you have no control. So maybe that could be the issue when it comes to attitude. Maybe he's more geared up to being a thrower and not so much developing as a pitcher. If that's the case, then he's a guy you put in a bullpen. But if you want him as a starter, he's going to have to start thinking along the lines of a starter, how to get himself in and out of, situation. But I think they kind of hurt his development with that start in Houston. He got bombed. He got shelled. So there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Is there such a thing as disrespecting a rookie?
Disrespecting a rookie?
Yeah, in regards to like, obviously he's ranked number 1, right, in the organization. So does that come with a status? Like you have him, you kind of want to wrap them in cotton wool. You want to make sure that you develop them properly before you bring them up, so you give them the best possible chance to go out there and make the impression you think they're going to make. Do you think it's kind of maybe a disrespect thing on the organization's part, where they've kind of brought him up, you've been crap, so we're going to send you back down again? Or isn't that really a thing in baseball?
I'm not sure it's the disrespect aspect of it, but to me, it's more so protecting your asset. Because right now, Nate Pearson, as talented as he is, he's a human being too, and he's really young, 24 years old, getting sent down after a bad start, and a start where, let's be honest, they were pretty much setting him up for failure. I think it just sends a bad message. He's pitched so well in AAA, where it's like, well, I've already proven that I can pitch well here. What's the point? Why can't I develop in the big leagues? And that's kind of always been my point. I agree with you, Sheldon. I think that they shouldn't have brought him up that early. But my argument is always, you made that call. It's over. That call was done. He's up in the big leagues, and now sending him back down won't do anything. Now that he's already up here, you made that decision. You got to live through it. That's how I saw it.
Yeah, I mean, with the decision to bring him up, if like Rob said, if you're going to bring him up, keep him up here. Okay, he got Sheldon in the start, put him in the bullpen, let him see if he can work out some of those kinks. Sending him down, it could go twofold. It could reinvigorate his determination, and he could really go lights out in AAA and force the Jays to make a move to bring him back up. Or the frightening part is he can go down to AAA and he can continue getting lit up down there, which then starts asking the question: is his confidence is shot? What do you do to rebuild his confidence? And it happened with Roy Halladay. They had to send him all the way down to A-ball before he came back up. I hope that is not the case with Pearson. I just hope goes down, pitches really well, and forces the Jays to call him back up.
I don't want to spend too much time on this next one, but we'll quick fire. Do you think at some point we're going to see Alek Manoah
this season?
Yeah.
I was going to challenge Steve tomorrow on Fan Take Friday, but this podcast will come out later, so it's all good. I was actually going to challenge him if he's going to be up next month, like within a month, June 15th. That's how much I think. I think he's ready. You look at a guy who's in AAA at this point, the 2 starts that he's had, and the rotation in its state as it is. I think there's no question that he's going to be up at some point. And honestly, the more I think about it, he could be up sooner rather than later. I know that Ross Stripling had a good start today, but let's be honest. If let's say for whatever reason Ross Stripling got shelled again today, you're telling me that Jays fans wouldn't be on the phones asking for Alek Manoah to be up tomorrow? So I think if he continues to pitch well, we'll see him very soon. As this season, yeah, I think 90% sure he's coming up at some point this season.
My feeling on Alek Manoah is I hope they don't call him up, just because I want him to get through some starts, see what he does, what he can do. If they're going to call him up, please don't call him up in June. Let him call him up in July if you have to. Let him get his feet wet. Let him go through ups and downs. Because he hasn't really any adversity yet. He's been dominant. But what happens when he runs into that? How does he react? Let him work through a few of those things. He looks good. He really does look good.
I've been massively impressed. Hugely impressed.
If they do call him up anytime, for me the timetable would be ideally not to call him up, but if you call him up, July would be the timetable. If they call him up before then, it's probably because the rotation needs for an arm. He might be the guy, and Pearson isn't doing well at the moment. So
who's better at the moment, Pearson or Manoa? Oh, silence.
Oh no, I think right now in terms of whose stock would you buy, it definitely appears that Manoa is kind of the obvious answer because he's kind of on the rise, while Nate Pearson, he's been dealing with the mechanical issues, control issues, injuries. So if you had to choose one as of right now, which I think it's early, you don't have to choose one or the other, but I think right now Manoa kind of looks like the safer bet, especially just right now. If I had to go right now.
Yeah, I would go with Manoa. Right now, he looks like he's closer to the majors than Pearson is.
So you'd bring up, in June you'd bring up Pearson, but Manoa you'd prefer to see stay for another year. You must be drunk, man. I don't get you.
No, I'm just saying. I'm not a fan of rushing any of these young pitchers. These guys don't have a lot of innings underneath them. But the Jays organization and the need for a starter will prompt one of those or two of those guys to be called up.
Yeah, I don't want to see the hype. I don't want to see the hype around Manoa like we did over Vladdy, because I think it was just too much for these young kids to handle.
Yeah, but Jay, don't forget though that when Vladdy came up, he was coming up on a team that was bound to lose 100 games that year. But he was the only reason why people were coming to the ballpark and excited to talk about this team. If Manoa were to get called up, they're in the middle of a playoff race. There's other external factors going on along the team, so I don't think the hype would be necessarily as crazy. That's what you're worried about. I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, I think Manoa will be able to slide in without any overhype, especially with the fact that Vladdy's performing well. Both performed well. Starting staff with Ryu and Ray have performed well. He'll be able to slip in there. I'm just, like I said, I'm not a big fan of calling him up, but if they have to, it's going to be out of a desperate need. And, but you know, it's a good thing to talk about because we have. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. I cut you off there. My bad.
Okay. No, it's a good thing to have when we're talking about young arms being called up. You know, when are we going to see him? When are we going to see him? It's exciting to talk about having starters that you could potentially see as, you know, a stabilizing force in the rotation for years to come. But yeah, it's fun. Okay, go ahead, Rob. I said my piece.
The way I see is that, you know, look, this is the first year that they're going into the season with legitimate playoff expectations, not, you know, condensed COVID-aided playoffs, but 2021, it's only the start. But at the same time, this is a year where Hyunjin Ryu is pitching at the top of his level. I mean, who knows? He's over on the wrong side of 30. How many more years are you going to get out of him pitching that well? George Springer, this is one of his 6 years here. So while, yes, this is only the start of a contention period, it's still a year where you can legitimately win a World Series if things break right. If your guys are performing well, if you make the necessary adds at the line, you have a legitimate shot at getting to the playoffs this year. And if Manoa is ready, to me, I don't see why you wouldn't bring him up this season.
Yeah, from what we've seen, I think we are legitimate playoff contenders. I think from everything we've seen, okay, we had a bit of a dodgy series against the Rangers. Didn't really go the way we were expecting. But let's face it, like apart from the game, the final game against Houston, I think we've competed well, and we've competed well with a depleted squad, right? So I think there's a good chance that we'll be there. But you said about us maybe winning 95 games earlier. That's a lot higher than I think, though. I still think that at the moment we're sitting 85, 90.
Oh, I said that?
No.
Oh,
Sheldon, Mr. Stapp. Yeah, I think it was on Blue Jay Setney either today or yesterday. It might have been yesterday. I think you said about us possibly winning 95 games, and I'm not sure if.
Sure. Yeah. I think I said something to the fact that if you can get a starter in there, a legit starter, not Alex, not Nate, but you know, someone who can come in and give you start after start after start, and it's consistent start after start. And if everyone comes back and everyone's healthy, they could win 90-95. They could actually go on a run. For them to be as good as they are right now, with literally a depleted roster, with people falling and getting hurt and COVID and everything else, and for them to be 20-16 at the moment, that's pretty good. So, they could go on a run. They could conceivably win 10 out of 11 games. And that could really put them in line between 90-95 wins. So
the problem I've got with you at the moment is that this is probably your last appearance on my show, because like your knowledge is just not good. You said that because Stripling was pitching, we would lose today.
Yeah, I said that. I'm the first to say that if Stripling was pitching, we would lose today. And somehow he won. I don't know how. I don't know if he was scuffing the ball. I don't know if he cheated. I don't know if he increased the spin rate magically. I don't know what it was. But that was not the Stripling that we were seeing the last few starts.
No, and that's the crazy thing, though, isn't it? Like he looked a totally different picture today, apart from the first inning. Because in the first inning, it looked like it could be a rout.
True. I mean, Acuna, ambushed him on the first pitch, and you kind of said, "Oh, this is not going to look good." But you know what? Give him credit. He settled down. He looked more relaxed. He looked far more aggressive in the strike zone. He was pumping in strikes, and his pitches were looking really, really good today. Is there hope that Stripling could do that again in 5 starts or in the next start or whatever, the next few days? I don't know. I don't want to be pessimistic and say he can't. He's always shown that he could. If he can give us another five innings and 2 earned runs, I'll take it. I think anybody would take it. Or he can become Tanner Roark, which, well, we all know what happened there.
I will say this, though. One thing that I'm excited about this team is that you look at the schedule. I think that they kind of lucked out with a front-loaded schedule, and kind of near the middle is where you kind of have the easier portion. And the reason why I say that is because at the beginning of the year, that opens the door for a lot more teams that can be fluky. You see a lot of bad teams get off to good starts. So the Orioles get off to a pretty decent start. The Rangers, the Royals, who have kind of flatlined. I feel like you kind of want to play these bad teams more towards the middle of the year, where the kind of the fluky starts, they kind of start to even out and
everything's settled down. Yeah,
teams. Exactly. Yeah. And on the thing too is that the other side, when you play good teams early on in the year, that opens the door for possibly some slow starts, and you can take advantage of that. We saw that with the Yankees. They're a team that got off to a slow start. We got them right at the right time. And then same with the Braves as well. These 2 series with the Braves, this is not an accurate representation of this Braves team. When the Red Sox or the Yankees play them in August, I'm sure they're going to be a lot better than they are right now. So I think getting them out of the way early, getting these tough games out when teams still haven't hit the ground running yet, and facing the bad teams when things start getting back to normal, I think that's an advantage for this team, really.
Just before we go sorry to interrupt. Just before we go any further, this episode is not sponsored by Manscaped. Like, boys, what is that all about? Clarifying? Yeah, just clarifying. It's not sponsored by Manscaped.
Like, it should be.
Out of all the sponsors you could have got, it's Manscaping. But people, if you don't know, head over to Blue Jay Center, watch some of their post-game shows, and you'll see what we're talking about. Rob doesn't use it on his head, but Sheldon does.
I can't say no to that.
Look, we got to pay the bill now. No, that's all I'll say about
that. Go on, Sheldon. Sorry, I cut you off rudely there to get my non-advert in.
You're non-advertising, advertising for I was going to say, facing the weaker teams in the middle and into the end of the schedule is probably more of a benefit for the Jays than anyone else. They haven't faced Detroit. They haven't faced Baltimore. You should be able to beat those teams up pretty good. But we'll see. The stranger things have happened in the season where teams that aren't supposed to be good play you really, really hard, and you end up with a 500 record against them. And Baltimore looks like a scrappy team. Detroit looks like they're, and again, no disrespect to Detroit Tiger fans, but they are easy pickings right now. They are having a lot of problems in Detroit. And Goodrum and Badu can't save them. That's the honest truth. Those two guys can't save them. They're good, but they can't save them. Baltimore is scrappy, so it'll be interesting to see what the Jays do against a team that isn't as good as them. Because right now they're playing against teams that are, somewhat at a higher echelon than they are, and they've rose to the challenge and they've battled all those teams. What are they going to do when they face a struggling team like Detroit? What are they going to do against Baltimore? This is part of their development. They should be able to beat them up, but we'll see. I don't want to say they're going to lose. I don't think they will, but it's going to be they're going to probably run into a few problems with those teams.
So how are we going to do against the Phillies then? The Phillies have been kind of okay. Like, how do you see this series going?
That's a good one. Phillies are an interesting team. I'm not exactly sure about the pitching matchups quite yet. Avoid Nola by any chance, or is he healthy for them?
I think Nola might be doing Sunday's game.
Okay, so I feel a little bit less happy about the sweep now. But look, you don't have to sweep teams. Sweeping is obviously great, but look, take 2 out of 3 at home against a team that, look, they're not necessarily an inferior opponent, but they're not a superstar team either. Probably coming into the year, a lot of people would have pegged them in kind of the same tier as us. So any chance you can beat a team that's up to your par or above your level, you're always happy about that. So I think the Jays can take 2 out of 3. No reason why you shouldn't be happy with that.
I think if the Jays take 2 out of 3, that's perfect.
Yeah.
If they go sweep, that's even better, obviously. But hey, all you gotta do is win 2 out of 3, man. All you gotta do is just win a 3-game series and break even on a 4-game series, and you're gonna have a winning record. Obviously, you got to be careful of Bryce Harper. I know JT Realmuto is hurt, so I don't think we'll be seeing him. But still, Harper is a threat pretty much every at bat, so you got to be careful with him. McCutchen gets on base, so you got to try and keep him off the bases. And they have some players on that team that are very scrappy. Gene Segura, Ryan Hoskins. They got some. I'm just actually looking at their lineup right now, and they could cause some problems. But the way the Jays have been pitching, I say 2 out of 3. I think they're going to win 2 out of 3, and I have a funny feeling they'll lose Saturday and win Sunday against Nola.
Huh.
That
would make sense, wouldn't it? Yeah. So plenty of positives over the last few days. I even took positives from the Houston series, if I'm honest. 2 things bugging me. Lourdes, something's not right. Something's not right there. He looks a shadow of the player that we've seen in the past. Although the swing that he took to drive in the RBI today was close to being out of the park. So maybe there's something there, but there's something. And then what do we do? Does he need a rest? Does he need a break? Like does he get sent down to try and find some hitting? Because they were very quick to send Rowdy down, and he was actually hitting when they sent him down. So, what happens is the only reason he's staying up is because we don't really have anyone else to play that position.
I think that, and the fact that he has been a proven hitter at some point. You look at last year in the second half of 2019. I think he's built enough of a track record where they trust him. They trust his bat in the lineup. But I completely agree with you, Jay. You look at what he's done this season. We know that the plate discipline was never quite there. He's always been a guy that's willing to chase out of the zone. But even this year, we saw this at bat today, 6th inning with the bases loaded against Webb from the Rays, I believe, the relief pitcher. He got 2 breaking balls that caught a lot of plate and a 93-mile-per-hour fastball. Those are pitches that that's where he's been very successful at. And he just overmatched on both of those pitches, and he swung and missed on that breaking ball. So he's not identifying balls and strikes correctly. And even when he's making contact, it's a lot of weak stuff. Balls, pop-ups. You're not seeing a lot of good positives. I'm down on him as I have been on any player, even more so than Cavan.
Yeah, we spoke about it earlier today. There's definitely something wrong with him. I earlier in the year I thought maybe he was too muscle bound, and we were starting to see that flexibility come back. Even with his flexibility, he's starting to show that swing isn't anywhere near what it was last year. And I'm starting to wonder if it's something more physical with him. Maybe he's not seeing it correctly. Maybe it could just be a simple thing of getting different contact lenses to help him see the ball.
Fatigue.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be fatigue. I don't.
That's the
it could be
buzzword that we're
something.
not looking for.
Yeah, it's a buzzword. It could be something in the fact that, the last couple of years he always batted in the third spot, and now he's batting sixth, seventh, eighth. And maybe that could be something that's playing on him psychologically as well. Maybe he thinks that he should be the number 3 guy, or maybe his confidence is shot because he isn't the number 3 guy in the lineup. It could be a whole host of things, but we do need Lourdes Gurriel to hit. We do need Lourdes Gurriel to perform at his capabilities. And eventually something's going to have to be done. Now, I'm not saying trade him. I'm not saying send him down, but they've got to figure something out because we do need him. So that it's kind of, it's concerning. We talked about it earlier. Rob and I talked about it earlier. It's concerning now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So sorry to cut you off, G, but I just want to put it out there for those people who say they should trade him. You're not trading a controllable asset when his value is at
zero.
The lowest it can go.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's not a feasible option.
So the other thing that's got me thinking, we spent 150 million on Springer. Do we actually even need him?
Well, I think the fact that Lourdes is your starting outfielder right now, we just talked about how rough he's been. It would be nice to add a guy who last time we saw him over the course of a full season was a 6-win player in the outfield. I think that would help just a bit. I think, do they need him? I think if they're going to take an extra leap as a team, adding a player of his caliber certainly helps. But look, we've seen 60 games last season, 40 more or less games this season. So about 100 game sample. And the Jays have been, you look at their record, I think they won 32 out of 60 last year, and they're 20-16. So that's a pretty large sample, more than half a season of them being an above average baseball team. So if that's what the goal is, to just kind of be in the hunt, then yeah, they probably can do that even without Springer, but they want to take that leap into a playoff contender, maybe even a World Series contender. I don't see how they'd be able to do that without his bat and lineup.
It was kind of tongue in cheek. I was kind of trying to be funny, but the way I actually really look at it is that obviously we're 4 games over at the moment. Imagine what he brings to the offense when he's fully fit.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of mad looking at it. Like, because I've seen a lot of people not turn on Springer. I think that's the wrong term to use. But there's been 1 or 2 little comments here and there, mainly from the fans. But we all know how fickle the Jays fans can be at times. But I'm just like, let's get him fit. Even if we get him fit for 100 games, imagine him in the lineup, the top of that lineup for 100 games for the season.
Yeah, I think him at the top of the lineup is going to be huge. You got to remember this team is kind of running on a couple hitters short right now. Cavan's not hitting really well, even though he had a good game today. Lourdes is not hitting well all season. Danny Jansen hasn't hit at all until recently, and even that's kind of questionable. Even though we kind of got excited when Danny started hitting home runs.
Big hit today, though.
Yeah. But so and Reese McGuire got a hit, so maybe Reese is the guy who could help offensively at the catcher's position. But where the Jays are positioned right now, and they're doing it with issues, and they're playing well with the issues. So just wait till George comes back, wait till Lourdes starts to get hot, wait till Danny kind of finds himself offensively. I hope he does, and then we'll see what the Jays are. Like I said,
the Jansen thing's interesting because I can't remember who mentioned it. I think it was last week. If he hits 1 for 4 every other game, I'll take that. And you know what? Kind of will. Look at the one hit that he got today. Drives in a run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm all right with him at the moment. I think the catcher position, I'm not too bothered about. I wasn't bothered about it before. No one is going to go over 35, over 40 for a sustained period without getting a hit. Just not with him anyway. We've seen him hit home runs. Like, look what he did just recently. So I think the catcher position is not really an issue. The Lourdes thing does bother me, but maybe it'll be one game that turns it around. He hits 2 home runs in a game or something, and that's it. He's off and he's back to the Lourdes, we know. Okay, so before we go any further talking serious baseball, let's move back to last weekend. Rob, you weren't actually with us, but it was the Kings of Trivia, Blue Jay Center versus the Jays from Six Boys. You'll be pleased to obviously know that Sheldon and Steve did a magnificent job and absolutely smashed the kids to the point I think that they were going to start crying. Poor Adam was lost for words, literally. But you got called out.
I saw that.
Yeah, you got called out by Zach, and he wasn't holding back. What have you got to say to respond?
Well, all I gotta say is that when I saw that, the first thing that came to my mind was the MJ meme, the Michael Jordan meme, where it's, yeah, I took that personally, and I did. Zach, you think I'm here, an easy out, the 9th hitter, who can get me out easily, pitch around these other big hitters, and then have to face me? That you're wrong. When we face again in trivia, that score from last week will be the best case scenario. That's like as good as you can do. This one will be an absolute blowout, and I'll just say we're going for the shutout. That's our goal. We're not even gonna like let up, just not winning. We're gonna shut you guys out. So be ready. I'll be ready. Let's get it going. That's all I gotta say. Just
a quick take on it though. What did you actually think? Because obviously we're trying to do some stuff that's a little bit different, a little bit more entertaining. Doesn't have to always be so serious. And it was we had great fun recording it, but obviously you weren't part of it. So what did you think, like watching it and stuff?
Yeah, I thought it was very entertaining. Obviously, I'm a little biased. I had a horse in the race, so I kind of leaned over to our guys. But I thought it was very entertaining. I thought anytime you have trivia, it's always fun to talk about. Especially, what was the last round you guys did? What was it called? The nearest to the
nearest to the pin. Nearest to the pin. Yeah.
Nearest to the pin. Yeah, I thought that was interesting, and I thought the tidbit of not going over was interesting because you kind of have to lowball it a bit because it's hard to get it right on. So the only way you're going to get it right is if you guess under. So I think that's an interesting strategy. I'm excited to do it whenever we organize another game, hopefully soon.
Yeah, we'll try and see if they'll come back. They've kind of gone missing online since then. I don't know.
Shocker.
I don't know if they're just in hiding or they're doing some prep work for the next one. Who knows?
I heard they're doing scouting. I heard they're scouting. They're scouting for a third member, and
they're taking Steve's trivia book and studying that back to cover, like the night before an exam.
Yeah,
that's how serious they are.
I might have to do the same with the questions because one or two of them are just a bit too obvious for the older guys.
It's not our fault.
This guy here is Sheldon's pulling out, like, not only is he pulling out the answers, he's pulling out that this guy threw 27 pitches and 4 of them spun 3,000 times as it was coming to the play. Like, it was kind of crazy with some of the answers, but it was good fun. And Rob, we could definitely get you involved this time. Maybe we should do a Blue Jay Center one where it's literally all of you guys facing off against each other. That would be interesting.
That would be interesting.
We should get some more contestants for that. So you could probably get James or Ann or Mo or Matt. Bring them all in.
The funny thing is they first thought of James, and they said, no, they want you. So I'm starting to think maybe they might try and sneak James onto their team.
Ooh, James he's too loyal for that. He's not betraying our side. For a fact.
Money talks, man. Money talks.
Well, we'll have to have a chat next time we record the next G's Banter podcast, if that happens.
Fun.
Oh yeah.
What do you think is going to happen? Obviously, considering where we are at the moment, do you think that we're going to make big splashes and come the trade deadline? Like, I just don't see. Everyone's talked about possibly a third baseman, possibly a second baseman. Maybe Simeon doesn't come back. I think Sheldon. I think you mentioned that you don't think he'll come back. I actually wouldn't mind. Like, from what we've seen recently, I wouldn't have a problem having him back. Obviously, he's an older character as well, which means that the guys have got someone in there that's been there, done it kind of thing. Do you think that they'll go out? Well, obviously, we know the pitcher scenario, but do you think that they'll go and get a third baseman? Do you think that they might look at second base or maybe a shortstop and bow moves, or I don't. What do you think the makeup is?
So I think when you look at the team's biggest needs right now, I think most people would agree that starting pitching and an infielder who can play on the left side is by far their two biggest needs. And why I lean yes is because when you're looking at the left side, Cavan, that could change. He might not be the third baseman every day, but it seems that right now for this season, Bo Bichette's your guy at short. Regardless of what happens, he's your everyday shortstop for the remainder of this season. And we've seen him struggle at times too. So if he's going to be there and playing the way he has so far, which he has had some struggles every now and then, but you're going to really need third base defense to come at a premium if that's the case, because I don't know if you're going to get it from shortstop this season. That's the thing. And even if Cavan can end up being an average third baseman, that might not be good enough. It might not be good enough to offset Bo potentially playing at a below average level at shortstop. So I think the fact that Cavan is at a new position and he has struggled so far, to me, I feel like you almost have to, just because of that.
Yeah, I think they're gonna have to determine what they want to do with Cavan, and that's probably going to be done at the end of the season, in the off season. What do they view him as? Do they view him as a starting second baseman, or do they view him as a super utility guy? And that will kind of set everything else in motion. For this season, they probably will need a defensive third baseman. Kyle Seager's name's been brought up. And I think there was somebody else that was brought up as well. I can't remember who it was. It wasn't Chris Bryant.
Colin Moran, I think.
Yeah, Colin Moran. And Colin Moran might fit in more with the Jays because of his versatility. He could play a little bit of the outfield. He could play third. He could play first. He might be able to one that they might go after. What I like to see in the offseason, where their plans are, ideally, when I made the statement that I don't think Marcus will be coming back, I think the team is still high on Cavan Biggio, and he did perform well at second. So if they feel that Cavan's their second baseman going into 2022, then they're going to have to make a move to get a third baseman, a premium third baseman, whether it be a trade or by free agency or whatever they can, or something. But for this season, they're going to have to get someone to come in and play third defensively, because they need help on that side defensively.
Do you both think that Cavan can be our everyday second baseman?
I think the jury's still out on that. I'm not sure. I think his position is probably better off in a super utility role. I'm just not sure offensively he'll ever be able to be an everyday player. I'm hoping that that's the case, but ideally, when you look at him this season, the hard hit percentage still scares me. I think he's able to take a walk when he's hitting leadoff or late in the order, but we just haven't seen the hard hit percentage be consistent enough. To me, that's one of the biggest reasons why I think that's the case. If he can get on, that's great, but playing in that middle of the order, he's going to get challenged a whole lot more, and in that case, they say a walk is as good as a hit, but when you're being challenged, you're going to need to hit. So I think that I have my doubts about that, if I'm being honest.
I think I had pegged him as being a Matt Carpenter type of player, guy who gets on base, who gives you a little bit of power, but he is really struggling with those any pitches that are above 95 or more. Like, he really can't hit those at this moment. It could be a mechanical thing where they just maybe drop his hands a little bit more, something that they could do to kind of help him with the bat speed. But I think he can handle second, definitely better than what he can handle in third, or even in left. He looked a little sketchy in left field. Right field, he looked better than he did in left. So, but is he someone that you can put out there for a game or two to survive for whatever reason? Yeah, you could survive with him in left for a game. You could survive with him at third for a game if he's in super utility role. I just feel that he is more comfortable at second. And like I said, he did play well at second. Is he a Gold Glover at second? No, I don't. Could develop into one, but I don't see it happening. But he's good. He's good at second. But again, it boils down to what the Jays want to do with him and how they view him. I know when he first came up, they were talking about him being a super utility guy, and that could still be the case. Still be the case with him. It's not a bad thing for him.
And that's no slight on him either, because this is a guy who was a 5th-round pick. To go from being a 5th-round pick to having the expectations of an everyday player in just 3 years, that's a big jump. So the fact that he's even having these expectations, that's an indictment of how good he's been throughout the minor leagues.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with being an everyday super utility guy. Marwin Gonzalez comes to mind.
He'll probably play three. He'll play 3 out of 5 games probably anyway, wouldn't he? Because he'll play when the right fielder's getting a rest. He'll play third when the third baseman's getting a rest. So he'll play 3 out of 5 games probably anyway.
I think he'll probably play 4 out of the 5 more than anything else. They may send him against a tough right-handed flamethrower, or maybe against a lefty. But he'll probably play about 4 out of those 5 games, and we know what we're going to get with him. On base, a little bit of power, a little bit of speed. He's definitely not going to be he could be like a latter career Matt Carpenter, if you want to go with that. But he's still got value to the team. So we got to see what the Jays are going to do.
What's your thoughts on Reese McGuire since he's been called up? I think he's been okay.
He's been solid. I still feel that Danny Jansen, being that chemistry with Ryu and catching well against Steven Matz, they should probably split time. But overall, offensively, from what you've seen, that's probably a little more than what we've gotten out of Danny so far. I think, to me, Reese McGuire, in terms of being a backup catcher who can play 2 out of every 5 days until Kirk gets back, I don't have an issue with that.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with him being a backup catcher. If Danny continues to struggle offensively, we probably will see more of Reese McGuire. And being a left-handed bat doesn't hurt. He does have some good contact skills. We've seen him have a hard hit to right field today, a hard line drive. So, he's got some potential. I mean, he can catch a game. He can call a game. He can do everything that you need to do for a backup catcher. He's got a little bit of offensive. He's got a bit of an offensive upside. So he's not too bad. I'm good with him.
My question is, though, what do they do with him once Kirk gets back? Because you're not going to carry 3 catchers. You might. I mean, if Kirk comes back late, you might seek him through the September call-ups. But ideally, Kirk's your best offensive catcher. That's we know that. That's set in stone. And then defensively, you're keeping Jansen because of the Ryu thing. So right now, unfortunately for him, he's probably the 3rd catcher on the depth chart once everyone's healthy. So I'm not sure what exactly his future will be with the team beyond this year.
Trade him, put him in a package, and probably toss him somewhere. Pittsburgh needs a catcher.
I'm not sure you should use the word toss, but whatever.
He's from Pittsburgh, actually. They acquired him from Pittsburgh, so wouldn't that be interesting if they traded him right back to them?
We haven't talked about him yet, but Vladdy, what's the deal with Vladdy at the moment? Do we just think that he's just having a quiet patch, or is there something maybe there? Like, he still seems himself. He's still his jovial, jumping around, dancing around, smiley self. So just a quiet patch, or is there something else going on there?
It's just a quiet patch. I mean, all hitters go through it. The only thing I was concerned about with the slump was the fact that he wasn't taking a lot of walks. Like his on pace percentage was below 300. But other than that, it happens. I think maybe the pitchers have tried to do something different with him, and it's kind of caught up to him a little bit. But too good of a hitter. He's too smart of a hitter. As long as he continues going up the middle and to right center, he'll be fine.
Yeah,
just a rough patch.
Mike Trout, he never had an 1150 OPS season. So Vladdy, we knew that the numbers were going to dip at some point, but overall, you look at his stats on the season, he's still hitting 310 with an OPS just below 1,000. I mean, what are we talking about? That's a great hitter, even with this slump. So I wouldn't be worried at all. And don't forget, he did have 3 hits the other day in that big home run. So for me, I think you don't have to look too far into that. That's just me, though.
Who's our star player at the moment? Who's the one? Obviously, it's not Vladdy. 1 game out of 5 or something. So, who's really caught the eye at the moment?
I'm gonna go Marcus Semien. He's got a 12-game hit streak. He's hit in 18 of his last 19. He's got a 1,200 OPS in the month of May. You could legitimately make a case, and no disrespect on Bo, because he's had a good year as well. that he's been their second best hitter from the beginning to this point behind Vladdy. And the fact that ever since they moved him down in the order in that Boston series, he took that position and ran with it. He hit really well in the sixth spot, and then out of necessity, with Springer going down, he's been elevated back into leadoff, and it hasn't slowed him down one bit. He's got a hit in every game on this road trip. He had that huge series against the A's, his return. Right now, he's been carrying this offense, and he got 2 more hits today. He's one of their best hitters right now, no doubt.
This is Rob took Marcus. I'm going to go with my boy Teoscar, especially what he's done. He's just been on a tear, especially coming from COVID-19. We've all heard these stories about COVID-19, and that's for another time. But he's recovered very nicely, and he's hitting the ball very well. And he's going opposite field. He's going to right center. He's going to center. He's going to left center. That monster shot he hit last night that went 464 feet was ridiculous. He's, when he's healthy, he's the guy that protects Vladdy. And, he's kind of, I view him as the enforcer in that lineup. You probably get past Bowie, you might be able to pitch around Vladdy, but eventually Teoscar's going to come and get you. And, he's the legit heavy hammer in that lineup. Teoscar's really caught my attention this past week, the way he's been performing.
Jay, I wanted to ask you this question. I asked Sheldon on the post-game show today, but right now, the core is very clear. You have Vladdy, Bo, and Springer. Those are the 3 guys, and after that, you're trying to figure out who else is there. Is it time that we put Teoscar in that conversation as well? Because ever since the second half of 2019, he's been on a tear offensively, and defense wasn't great out of the gate, but it's certainly become a lot more serviceable as of late. Do you put him in that category, in your opinion?
What, with the big 3?
Yeah, in terms of guys who are moving forward or with the core of the team, like in terms of signing him an extension as soon as possible.
Yeah, I've got to be honest. I've been a big fan since he's come up. There's something about him that says this guy he's one of ours. He's one of ours.
Yeah.
And there's not really been anything to say that he isn't capable of getting big numbers. I think that is he gonna hit for a high average? Probably not. But is he gonna get home runs and RBIs? Yeah, he's gonna be there or thereabouts. He'll probably end up with 30 plus homers, maybe.
Yeah.
If we see him consistent, we'll see 30 plus homers and we'll see 80 plus RBIs. I'm pretty sure of it. I don't see any reason why not. Out of the players that we have, the only one that kind of always seems streaky, where you think, oh, like maybe this is it, is Randall, right? Randall comes in and he hits pretty well. He's hitting home runs, he's hitting for power, and then all of a sudden it just goes, and then you're waiting for that to happen again. Whereas I think Teoscar, he may not hit home run after home run after home run, but what he does is he does keep it a bit more consistent. So he might hit a home run, he might not hit one for 2 or 3 days, but then he'll hit a double and he'll maybe go 3 for 4. And I think that's where I'd rather have that in the team rather than, I'm not saying that it's an either or, but if I was to choose one or the other, I would choose Teoscar just because the consistency is just a bit more longevity in it. Whereas Randall can be a month on, a month off. That's kind of where I sit with that, really.
So we got 2 more years of control out of him, 2 more arbitration years. So this next season and the season after, so 2023. I think if he has a good year this year, you got to lock him up, because he's only going to get more expensive. If you don't lock him up this offseason, then he has a big season next year. He's not going to take an extension. He's going to play it out and get paid in free agency.
Here's the thing, right? If I'm the front office, I am getting Vladdy and Bo on 7-8 year contracts straight away. Yeah. I'm tying them down, and then I'm saying, right, this is where I'm building my team. These are my 2 guys, and then you throw Teoscar a 4 or 5 year contract.
Yeah. 4 or 5 the Richard contract.
Yeah,
the Richard contract.
Yeah. I think that you tie him up for 5 years at least, because he's a bit older, right? So
27, I think.
Yeah, so he's a bit older. So you kind of, I think that you start getting to 32, you've kind of got to be a little bit careful. Obviously, we've looked at the Springer deal. we don't know what's going to happen in them final 2 years. So I think that you've got to, you can't have too many of them players on them kind of long, expensive contracts towards the end, because we'll get lumbered with them and it will be too late to do anything about it. So I think that Bo and Vladdy, you tie in to long-term contracts. You say, these are my core players. They already know you've got your first baseman, you've got hopefully your shortstop, whether it's shortstop or second base, you've got them two there. And then it's about who do they bring in? Like, I don't want to see them bring a rental in at third. I really don't want to see that. I would rather they were like, do you know what? This, whoever it is, 24, 25, 26 years old, they go and get someone that can be part of this team for 5-6 years. So the core is there. Like, it doesn't matter what sport you're playing, but if your core players, if you like, it's nine starters. Realistically, if you take the DH out of the equation, because anyone can be DH, you can put a 35-year-old in there that can still hit for power. Like, you've got 8 players. If I think 4 of them are young enough to all go together, you can fit the pieces as and when necessary. And you've got Springer in there already. So you've got Springer, you've got Vladdy, you've got Bo, tie down Teoscar. You get that third baseman, I think we're laughing, and I think the future will be very, very bright. They've planned for this. What I don't want to see them do is mess it up by going and giving away prospects that we could have probably used in 2-3 years' time for someone just for this season, because we can probably cope. Look, we could win the World Series with this team. From what I've seen, we're not far off the big teams that are up there. Not far off.
I think also, too, people got to remember that the last time the Jays were contending, 2015, 2016, that was a team that had a limited window because there were a lot of older players then, and you saw them trade prime assets for a rental, specifically David Price. That's not the case this year. The case this year is that you have a young team, and if you win 86, 87 games and you miss the playoffs, it's not a big deal at all. It's, this is the first year. You can always build back next year and build to this core. I think fans, they got to remember that it's a completely new regime, and the window is a lot more extended as opposed to last time they were contending. So in terms of compromising your asset capital, your prospect capital, you're definitely not giving up any of your fine prospects unless you're getting guys with significant control on their contracts.
I think the person that I would think about if I had to get a third baseman that can be around for more than 2 or 3 years would be Jose Ramirez. That would be the guy that I would target. If there was any way I can get him off of the Cleveland Indians, I would try it.
But they're good.
They're good. They're good. You're going to have the chances are, if you're going to get someone like him who's going to be around for a while, you're going to have to give up something significant, and it's probably going to either be Manoah, Woods Richardson, and a couple of other prospects. Is that going to be enough to get Cleveland to give up on him? It could be. We never know. And then you got to think about signing him and keeping him here. I think his contract's up at the end of next year, I believe. So right now, is there anyone out there that the Jays could get that they can keep for a few years, third base? I can't think of anybody at the top of my head that is young enough to be part of that core. So again, it boils down to what the Jays want to build. Like what Rob was saying, the 2015, 2016 teams, that was like literally the conclusion of what Alex and Papa was trying to do in 2012 and 2013 when he swung that huge deal with the Marlins, and that didn't really work out that well. But yeah, I mean, seriously, it just didn't work. I mean, it was a good attempt. I'm not going to fault him for trying, but it just didn't work out. And he had to do something in 2015, and obviously trading. I think in the end, he traded like 11 pitching prospects. There were literally four players, and 3 of them were rentals. So he went all in, and it didn't work out too well. I mean, he made it to the playoffs.
I don't want to see the likes of Richardson and Manoah. Like, I'd be disappointed if we were to lose any of them. Grosjean's, I don't know how I feel there. I don't think we've seen enough to know whether he's going to be good or not. And I think the same with Austin Martin. I think the expectations on Martin are probably higher but you just, I don't know, something says to me you don't want to see that. But what interests me when you just said that is, do you think the front office go out and spend another 150 million? Do they spend that kind of money, really?
Well, first thing that I want to say is that going back to the Marlins point, I said, isn't it kind of sad that of all the players that we got in that trade, the only player who's still playing today is the one that we gave up, Jeff Mathis. He's still in the league. He's the only guy. Yeah, I think this season they're going to spend again. They're going to spend again this offseason. You want to think why they didn't go out and pay Taiwan Walker and go out and get a guy for multiple years is because they want to keep flexibility. And flexibility, it's a great idea in theory, but unless you go out and you use that flexibility to get a player, it becomes completely obsolete. So I think the idea that they didn't improve the rotation beyond guys with 1-year deals this past offseason, that tells me that they're going to spend this offseason again. They're going to bring in another player. I'm not sure who it is. Maybe it's a shortstop. Maybe it's top of the market starting pitcher. But I would be surprised if they punted on improving the rotation this year because they wanted to maintain flexibility and they didn't use that flexibility in the offseason.
I think I would have liked to see Taiwan Walker back with the Jays, to be honest. I think I think our record might have been a little bit better than what we have. And Taiwan was only in the 2 years, maybe 2 years and 20 million or something. But yeah, I think this offseason is going to, they have money to use. I think ultimately what it boils down to is, can Mark Shapiro go to Rogers Communications and say, I want to sign Chris Bryant to a 5-year, $150 million deal, or whatever it'll take to get him? And will Rogers Communications say yes to it? So I think that's, they have a hierarchy that they got to go through. We know that Paul Beeson had to do it too. Paul Beeson had to constantly go to Rogers Communications every time he wanted to do something. And, their hierarchy in Rogers Communication is what it is now. It could change by the end of the year because it's a corporation. They make changes, and they may not feel the same way about spending money as the current regime does. So there's a lot of questions into, can they spend money? I think they can. It's a matter of who's going to allow them to. And what I love to see, another starter. I would love to see Scherzer for at least 2 years here in Toronto.
But they're not paying Mike Wilner anymore, so they must have some money spare. But do you think that they've set a precedent now because they've gone and offered Springer the money they have? Is that the benchmark now? Is that like, well, if Springer's getting this much money, can I push to get the same kind of money? And is that what we're going to see now? And like, I don't know, like who's out there that we could possibly sign that would be worth, let's just say it was Trout. I know we would never go for Trout, but like if we were, he's going to be asking for like ridiculous money that's way above that. So they have to be careful as well, because they're going to tie down, we're hoping that they're going to tie down these younger players, and they're going to be on relatively big contracts. I
think what they're going to do, I think part of when Robert was saying that they needed flexibility, I think they're eyeing the Vladdy contract and they're eyeing the Bo contract, because that's going to take up a pretty big chunk of their payroll. And in that case, you can't really blame the Jays for not signing too many people to long-term deals, because they got to keep that window open for those two and their contracts.
They have to do that this year, though, right? For both of them guys, I would have thought.
I felt they should have done it last year, to be honest with you. They could have just signed him and kept him for like an 8-year contract. I think the Tatis contract, if that could pose a problem, especially if these two perform incredibly well. I'm not saying they're going to ask for a Tatis type contract, but they're going to look at that contract and they're going to look at the Juan Soto contract, and you kind of cross your fingers and hope that they decide to take Ronald Acuna's contract, which isn't as big as those two. And if they take that, then you've kind of you've dodged a bullet. But if either one of those two asks for a massive deal, that like Tatis, Soto, Machado, Harper, the Jays, it would be tough for them to sign these guys. To sign both of them. Imagine signing both, having two players, and they're worth $50 million under payroll. That could pose some problems later on. But we'll see what they do. We'll see.
Yeah, I think I agree with that point, being that they probably should have done it the year before. They probably should have bet on their players because usually the third full season is when your player kind of takes off and they become, I guess, similar to the player that they're going to be, the comp they're going to be. So the fact that you don't lock your guys up right away before they hit their stride, right now, if let's say Vladdy finishes the season with an OPS above 900, Bichette is a 6-win player, it's going to be a lot harder to convince them to take a below market value team-friendly deal than it would have been a year ago when they were trying to break in and all they were looking for is security. And now they know that they're going to get paid if they keep performing like this. So you're going to have to pay them. I think that's a gamble that they made. And however way it goes, they're going to have to figure something out because you're going to have to keep Bo and Vlad somehow.
How much do you offer them?
I would honestly look. This is going to sound really bad, but I would look at the Acuna and Ozzy Alvis contracts. It's okay. This is where we're going to start and see what they say. And obviously, they probably would want more, but I would start with those two contracts and slowly build up to where it's beneficial for both the team and the player. But they could have probably gotten those two under. They probably could have gotten Bo and Vladdy on those contracts last year or the year. Yeah, maybe last year or the year before. That was the one thing that I give credit to Atlanta. They went and signed these two kids very young, and they got them on incredibly team-friendly contracts. Yeah. And the thing about Ozzy and Ronald, they're good character kids. They are very team-oriented. So you're never going to hear them. I don't think you're ever going to hear them complain about their contracts. They're there, and they enjoy their contract, and that's what they wanted. But I would start with those two contracts with both of them and see what happens from there. It's obviously going to go up, but you just want to try and see where the foundation is.
So just for clarity's sake, Sheldon, do you happen to know the numbers, the terms on those contracts off the top of your head by any chance?
I believe Ronald Acuna's contract is 8 years and $100 million.
Okay.
Give or
so
take.
Very, very team friendly.
Yeah, very team friendly. And I think Ozzy's contract was the one that surprised a lot of people because I heard it's 7 years and 52.
Wow.
And
they're getting more than that. They're getting more than that.
Yeah, what do you mean? The Jays are going to. I mean, Vladdy and Bo will probably get way more than that. Could it be double what they're getting? Probably, but like I said, I would start with that as a baseline to see. I don't know. Those two kids could surprise us. They could say, "Okay, fine, we'll take it."
Do you think that it helps that the team looks like they've bonded so well? They look like a team. Sometimes you look around and you see, and they don't kind of all look together. Sometimes it's all about me. Where these guys, they really do seem like they're all playing for each other. Do you think that helps, and that will make any kind of way to sway their decision on what they do?
I think it helped. Definitely. The fact that you grew up with this organization and you're in a place where you're comfortable. Maybe that'll sway them to take a little more towards the side of a team-friendly deal. But at the end of the day, comfort and being in a good environment, that's not going to make up for $50 million you could be getting elsewhere. So at the same time, that's also one thing that you got to consider is that how much of a team-friendly deal are they willing to take? Because there's limits to this. Are you taking a $10 million pay cut or a $50 million pay cut? That's kind of what it comes down to.
Okay, so how many years do you go then? If we're not going to put a figure on it, neither of you two will give me a number. How many years do we tie them down for? Realistically,
so I think when looking at both these players, you're probably not giving them a 10-year contract. I don't think that's something that Rogers would do. I think 6-7 years, when you look at that kind of range, that's probably beneficial for both players because they'll probably hit free agency at 28, 29. So they'll still be in position to get paid even after their contract expires. So I think that would probably fit in well. You could probably sell them that if we sign you to a 7-year deal right now, Vladdy's 22, you'll hit free agency when you're 28, 29. You can go out and get another big contract if you live up to this one. So I think that's probably along the lines of what I would expect them to get in free agency, or not in free agency, but extended.
Yeah, I mean, I would try and go 10 with both those two, but realistically, it's going to be about 6 or 7. And then that gives them the opportunity to sign another contract for even more money if they perform incredibly well. Ozzy's contract, just in case you were wondering, actually, it was a little bit off. It's he's getting paid $3 million this year, And in 2022, he's getting paid 5. And then for the next 5 seasons, 7 million each year. 40 million, 43. Yeah, 43 million. He's and
so the baseball payroll numbers kind of like 7-8 million per wins above replacement. So he's essentially getting paid a regular starter salary per year. Now, obviously, he does have the security, the 5 years, but in terms of value per year, it's hard to find much better value than that contract.
That's true. His contract is incredibly team friendly. Ronald Acuna's contract, this year he's getting paid 5 million. Next year's getting paid 15 million, and then the next 6 years after that, all the way to 2028 when he's 30, is only going to be 17 million. So
wow,
he could be. We could say that he's a little bit underpaid as well. Yeah. So yeah, these two kids signed. I mean, that's where I would start with them. Here's Acuna's contract. What do you guys think? And see what they say. And
then Vladdy and Bo's agent, they're gonna pull out the Soto contract. They're gonna pull out the Tatis contract, and then that's when the negotiations start rifting.
Yep, exactly. And then you'll have Kevin saying, "I'll take that contract. I'll take that contract. I'll take the Acuna contract. Sure. Why not?"
Crazy. There's some crazy numbers there, especially these guys are so young, so much money involved at such a young age. It's crazy. Yeah, absolutely crazy.
I think one of the things we need to take into consideration, sorry to cut you off, Jay.
Sorry.
Taxes in the state. What are the taxes in each state? I saw something about Joey Votto's contract. After his $22 million contract, after all the taxes and everything he does, he only takes home about $8 million. So
wow.
Only.
Welcome to Ohio.
Yeah, welcome to Ohio.
Crazy. Guys, we are going to run out of time shortly, so I think we should wrap this up. But really, really good fun doing this today, especially after a massive sweep win against the Brave. Massive thanks to both Sheldon and Rob for coming on today. Cheers, guys. I'm sure we will chat during the week at some point. We'll get another Kings of Trivia up and running. We'll see if we can get the Blue Jay Center Kings of Trivia going. And we'll find out if Zacks going to come out of hiding and take you on, Rob, at some point.
Oh, I'm ready. You know I'm locked in and ready, Jay. You know it.
Rob is the guy he wants, man. He doesn't want Steve or myself. He wants Rob. He even said it. Rob is younger. I can take him out. I'm like, all right.
Okay. We'll see about that.
So we have run out of time today. Massive thanks to Sheldon and Rob. Don't forget, as always, make sure you go and follow them over on Instagram. Sheldon's got about 25 different accounts, 40 and hitting whatever they're all called. I can't even remember off the top of my head. It's late and I'm tired. Make sure you hit Rob up. Also, the guys over at Blue Jay Center as well. Don't forget to make sure you like, subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music. Make sure you hit the follow buttons, spread the word, and I will catch you soon for another edition of Jay's Talk with Jay.